Good afternoon, my family and friends. I've had some asking me about seeds, so I thought I'd make this video dedicated to all about seeds since we're getting into our fall crops very soon. Some of us, we have long growing seasons, so we can tend to, like me, I can plant some more beans and things like this. But with the fall coming up, I thought I'd catch everything ahead of time and see if I can help you through successful growing. It's not going to say it's always going to happen that way, but everything that I've learned in the last 4 years, I'm going to share with you. The products I'm going to show you, by far, know that I am not promoting anybody. I am not being sponsored. I'm too small of a YouTuber for anybody to even notice. What I'm using is what I have used that I have found success in. So with that, I'm going to start with seeds. There are many different quality and kinds of seeds. There are many places you can buy seeds. I've bought seeds from the Dollar General. I've bought them from Walmart, from Lowe's. I've even bought plants from them. The experiences that I've had with Dollar General and Walmart brands and the Bonnie plants, there were some years that the plants grew, the Bonnies, and some years they didn't grow very well. It's up to you what you choose. There's nothing saying, there's nothing wrong with it. If you choose to not do any seeds whatsoever and you just want to do plants, that's perfectly fine. You may have to fertilize them a little bit more than ordinarily. It also depends on basically your area where you grow. Some, like my state, gets extremely hot in the summer, this year being the worst that I've seen yet. Some areas are cooler. When you hear, and there's a lot of misconception about your zone. When it comes to ordinary garden vegetables, there is no such thing as what is your zone that you can grow. It's based by your area, your state, your climate that you're in, where things are more tolerable. Where for me here in the deep south, some of my vegetables have to go in shaded areas during the high heat. Others may not get as much high heat as we do, and your growing season may come out way better than me. You may have a bigger crops than I do. In the fall, I may have better crops than what you can. It's not about zones or anything. Where zones come in, like for me, I'm zone 8A. That comes in for your vegetables, or not vegetables, your trees, your fruits, your special flowers, things like that. Those type of things, garlic, you do really need to know where your zone is and what grows better in your zone. I have been experimenting also when it came to seeds for quote-unquote specialty seeds. For instance, I grew up where the Chicago style hot dog was amazing. I thought I'd give it a try and see if I can grow my own sport peppers here. That didn't actually work. I will forewarn you ahead of time, it's a risk. I took a risk. I bought these seeds online and most of them didn't even germinate. Some that did germinate, they never even produced. You take a risk when you order special plants online, and there are some places I found amazing, and I'm going to get into that very soon when it came to seeds. To start growing your seeds, especially in the beginning of your summer crops, the general rule is 4 to 8 weeks before your last frost. What I usually will do is between the 6 to 8 range. I will count back from when our expected last frost is to be. I will count back 6 to 8 weeks, and I'll start planting my seeds at this point. When it comes to your last or your first frost of the season before winter starts, I will watch. Your seeds will usually tell you how many days on the backs of the packs. It's hard to see with this lighting, Backs of the packs will tell you how many days, like this one here states 20 to 30 days for harvest. I will take, for instance, if I started these now, which are radishes, if I started these now, it would be 30 days from today. But I will also add the germination day, which is 7 to 10 days. So I will add a couple weeks to that. The soil that I will start my seedlings in, I have found this to be the best. It's the organic Jiffy Mix. It's what I call virgin soil. There is no fertilizer, no nothing in it. To start your seedlings with absolutely nothing is better, because you want to adapt your plants to what you're going to put them through, whether the weather they're going to go through. You want to adapt them slowly. So it's really best to start off with the virgin soil. This is like a peat mix, and a lot of people will use a potting soil. That's okay too, but I will tell you, don't overwater it. You really, those seedlings need room to grow. They need that expansion. They need that fluff to be able to grow better. This is why I use this. And when I add my water to it for moisture, I will add enough because it will expand as I add my water. You don't want it where it's wringing wet. When you squeeze it, it should be like a wet sponge. It has, you'll see a little bit of water, and you'll feel the moisture, but it kind of squishes back. That's about the right point that you want it to be at. When I plant my seeds, and I will start indoors, most people will. I start them indoors in the little cells that they're in, and the next step would be, they have these kits with the domes. Those are really good. The domes will help keep moisture inside of it while they're growing. The other part would be lighting. Now, I understand a lot of people like me, you can't spend a whole lot in lighting. I've been there. I do have one that is amazing. I had one, I believe it was called Wonderworks. They are very expensive, but for the most part, I have used a regular 3,500 watt shop light from Walmart. Inexpensive. It was like $18 for a 4-foot. My husband took some scrap wood, made some pillars that went like this and a board across, put hooks on it for me so that I could hang my chains up and down to what the plant needed for the lighting space. And that comes in next is the lighting space. So a good shop light, it'll work. Inexpensive light, as long as there's some sort of lighting. The spacing. In the beginning, you want your light as low to the platform as you can get, and most generally 1/4 of an inch to a half inch. That is a good area, and the reason for this is to prevent what's called leggy plants. And I'm sure many of you heard what leggy plants is, but if you haven't, I'll describe it. This is where your seedling will start to grow straight up, but it has no stem structure. It's just narrow. It will continually grow and try to reach that light if it's too high for the seedling. Eventually what ends up happening is they will die or they will fall over. For a tomato plant, you can actually kind of save those by planting the stems deeper, but for the most part on your plants, you're going to actually have to start over if this happens to you. So we will try to prevent leggy plants by describing, leave your light at least 1/4 inch to a half inch to where your surface is, to make sure that your plants can grow strong and healthy. When I start my seedlings, I will use a dollar store spray bottle, nothing really expensive. I will mist my soil, leave my dome on top until I start seeing my seedlings. When you start seeing seedlings sprout, take the dome off. At this point, they don't need that heat, that heat source of the moisture that it's going to get. You want it to get air, So pull the domes off when you start seeing your seedlings sprout. Keep them misted with this very gently on your seedlings because they are very fragile at this point. And I would not start introducing regular watering or even fertilizer until they start getting their second set of leaves. And usually you'll see their first sets and then another set will come up. That is the second set of leaves where you want to start introducing more watering for root growth, and to add a very light, for example, I will use fish emulsion, and I will use a very light diluted fertilizer for my plants. You don't want to start introducing heavy fertilizer. It'll kill them. So start lightly. Eventually, as your plants grow, you raise your lights, and you'll need to accommodate for the height of them. When they start getting a lot bigger, you'll have to raise your light completely up. At a certain point, when it starts getting close to be putting them outside, when they're a good 4 inches or so, you want to do what's called hardening off. Hardening off starts out with introducing them for about 30 minutes to an hour in the shaded areas. Let them get used to a slight breeze. You don't want a heavy breeze. It will strengthen their stems, their leaves, and each day during the week, a little at a time, you'll start introducing them to the sunlight, getting them adapted to the weather, till finally you can just put them straight in your garden and you're good to go. The seeds that I start with, I had started out with the inexpensive dollar store, Walmart seeds. Some may have better experiences, and these are experiences. My ways may not be your ways. Please know that. You may do better than I've ever done. These didn't work for me very well. I had some that just didn't germinate. The germination also can depend on how much heat they're getting, if they're getting enough warmth, if they're too cold. These affect germination rates, or sometimes it's just the seed itself. But I didn't really have too much success in that, and here in a bit I'll also explain other parts of what I didn't have success in. But now some of these did germinate, some of these grew quite well, but it wasn't enough for me for what I do. I grow really big crops, so I didn't get much. And what I'll usually do, no matter what seed I use, I will always plant a few extra just in case. If all of my seeds germinated and I have extra, that's fantastic. But if they didn't, it allows me to have those extra plants that did germinate to accommodate for my losses. The seeds that I actually really like and I started investing in, and believe me, like I said, I'm not promoting the company. These are just what I like. I love the flavors that come from these, and they're Heirloom Seeds. The two companies that I have started buying my seeds from, I've had excellent germination rate. I've had production. This year, before the heat hit us, I even got at least a bushel of tomatoes. It was amazing, and the flavors are really good. I get exactly what I ordered. And the first one is from Baker Creek, Baker Creek. Baker Creek, you can find them online. They have a variety of different seeds from, Lord have mercy, they have many different kinds. Their prices range between $2.50 to $5. Some may be a little more depending how exotic of a seed you want to get into. The other one I like is M.I. Gardner, Migardner. You can find both of these online. M.I. Gardner has all heirloom seeds as well, and I've had great germination rate from them. The other reason I like heirloom seeds is you can start out with a 1 pack of tomatoes. From those tomatoes you can save the seeds, and you're going to get exactly what you grew. I have found this to be true. I tried saving the seeds from Walmart and stuff, but a lot of these seeds are hybrids. They're mixed, and Now, the heirloom seeds will have, some of them will be hybrids also, but they're mixed with heirloom to heirloom. These are hybrid to hybrid. My experience is 1 year I took one of my tomatoes, saved the seeds. When I planted it, two things happened. Either they just never germinated whatsoever, or I ended up getting what was supposed to be a nice size big boy tomato. I ended up with a cherry tomato. So I don't, it's not saying don't try it. Maybe it'll work better for you. For me, it just didn't. I tend to be spoiled or keep my preferences on heirlooms. So I started saving my heirloom seeds. How do I save my seeds? I will take the vegetable that I've grown, whether I'm going to can it, dehydrate it. I will pull the seeds out and clean them up really good, and either lay them on a paper towel, a dry paper towel, or I will put them in my bowl and just let them air dry. Don't try to dehydrate them or oven dry them, nothing. You don't want to cook them. You cook them, they're dead. You're not going to get nothing. You just want to air dry them until they're nice and dry. Then you could store them in a sealed jar. You can store them in a Ziploc bag, anywhere where there's no moisture going to get to them, no air is going to get to them. Store them in a dark, cool place and save them for when you need them later. The nice thing about saving seeds is it's a continual crop. You don't have to keep buying, and that's really awesome. Eventually they will expire and you'll have to start over, but to be able to keep a crop going without forking out all this money into seeds, saving your own seeds is very, very beneficial. I am doing that this year with all my heirlooms, and I'm excited to see where this takes me next year. And so I'm hoping that explaining to you about these seeds, getting ready for your fall harvest crops, your summer crops. Like I said, in the beginning, I tried to keep that 6 to 8 weeks before my last frost. This way I'm not going to run into a surprise like, oh my goodness, you know, and I've done that. I will actually give it a few more weeks before I'll even put my plants outside, because we've had what we called surprise frost a week later or two. So I will kind of hold them back a little bit. I try not to go any sooner than 6 weeks. I've planted earlier than that, or much later than that. Basically, I've been known to plant mine 8 to 12 weeks before my last frost, and my plants got entirely too big, and you've got to transplant. I'll talk about that next, but you've got to transplant these to get them adapted to bigger and better root systems. And I have found I'd run out of pots, I'd run out of soil. It was a mess. So I try to stay 6 to 8 weeks now, and don't go any sooner than that. I will try to research when the expected of my last frost is and go from there. Transplanting, that is also important. When you start from your seedling, usually when they get to their second set of leaves, it's basically time to transplant them into something slightly bigger so that the roots will have time to form and grow. Like I said, this is when you want to introduce small amounts of fertilizer, you know, start watering them. You don't want to water heavily. You don't want your soil to be so wet that it'll actually drown out your plants. Another thing that I've learned that actually helps is circulation. Once you remove the dome on your seedlings, very low, I use a ceiling fan for circulation, but you can use an oscillating fan or a little inexpensive fan on your table on a low setting. You don't want these to get so used to a high wind that it's just going to knock them over. These are babies. These are very tender plants. The circulation of them helps strengthen their stems, but also helps to prevent mold on your soil. If you happen to get your soil way too wet, it's very easy to produce mold and types of fungus on your soil you don't want, because these can tend to kill your plants as well. These are, it's like a newborn. You start small, you work your way up. As the plant gets bigger, you can pretty much tell if your plant is ready to be transplanted. You don't want them very much root bound to the point where they become so compacted. If this happens, transplant this immediately. You can usually tell if you pull it out. It'll be either loose. If it's too loose, just put it back in your pot. It's not ready. You can see some form where there'll be a rounding of roots around it, but not too compacted. If they become compacted like that, I would suggest a much bigger pot. Take and gently, and very gently, take the roots and massage your roots a little bit to loosen up the compacting effect of your roots, and then transplant them into a much bigger pot until they're ready to go outside and transition. If there is anything that I have missed that you would like to know about your seeds, I'd be glad to explain that to you or give you information as much as I possibly can. Again, everything that I've spoken is just based by my experience. What works for me may not work for you. I enjoy growing my own vegetables. I love it. Honestly, there is a much different flavor between store-bought and homegrown. The flavors, they're indescribable. It's bursting with flavor, where to me a tomato, for instance, from the grocery store is kind of bland. There's no, it's watered. There's no flavor to it. I like flavor, so I will choose to grow my own. It's to me, that's more beneficial. Am I gonna have the perfect garden every year? Nope. I done showed you earlier in one of my videos this year, my crops did okay up until the heat came around and it just fried everything. So you may have a better chance than I do. I may have a better chance than you do. I tend to take, because of my milder winters, some of you may have much harsher winters, and I totally get that. And it's going to be harder for you. You have shorter growing seasons. I think I have 225 growing seasons before my frost ever hits me. The other thing that I have, though, that I've invested within the years, and like I explained, is we use our taxes to upgrade our homestead, is we purchase 20-foot greenhouses where I can cover my plants during the winter. I don't have fancy fans in my greenhouses. The only ventilation they have is either from the flaps on the sides of them or the door. I don't have AC in them, so in the summer I literally just pull the tops off. Next year I believe that I am going to organize my plants to height depths in my raised beds, where I can add shade cloths to see if that will help me against the harsh sun, to see if that'll help save my crops better. So I will be investing in shade cloths this year, so hopefully we have a better luck next year for summer. In the winter time, I will put the covering that our greenhouses came with, and I will grow my crops for winter in there up until a certain point. When it gets really cold, like January, February, sometimes late December, I pretty much know that, because I don't have a heated greenhouse, that eventually my crops are done, and that's going to be it until my last frost. So I will take that time to kind of work my soil. Some areas I've continually grew summer crops straight into fall crops, and sometimes I've got to take a break from my soil, rejuvenate it with fresh compost. I'll work my soil in. Sometimes I will do what's called a chop and drop, which takes my vegetables, chop them up, lay them in my beds, and let them compost in there for an entire season. It's good that you do that. It's good to rotate. A lot of people say you don't have to do that. Not necessarily, you don't, but I think it works out better because the pH in your soil tends to change. So, and I did purchase an inexpensive pH tester. You stick it in the ground, it'll let me know where, if I'm too acidic or anything, and those can be adjusted. I can explain that much later on. Right now we're just getting into the basics of growing, and it is kind of important that I found on pH levels a good soil for just about any crop is 6.8 to 7.0. If it starts getting even higher, you tend to start hitting, well, the lower the pH, it's more acidic. I've used regular baking soda and water to help draw out the acid in my soils to get it up in the sixes. The higher the pH, you're lacking acidity and a balance. So 6.8 to 7.0 is really a good growing system in your garden. You can tend to use Miracle Grow if you want. I choose not to. I'm not going to tell anybody what kind of fertilizer you can use. That's completely up to you. I like fish emulsion. It's more organic, and to me, I've had a lot of success with it. But like I said, that's personally your preference. When it comes to sprays for bugs, personally, I like organic soap and water or things like that. I tend to shed away from neem oils and things like this, even though they're organic. We do raise our own honeybees. I do like to keep my beneficial butterflies and ladybugs and my honeybees. So I'm very careful what I spray my plants with. But again, this is completely up to you. Bugs can be a problem. Squash, vine borer squash problems are really awful. They can destroy your crop in a heartbeat. And I've been told to using BT and all this, and a lot of these treatments, they can be effective, but I will warn you, they are expensive. I haven't yet tried it. It's an injectable type of substance you can use for these, and you just pretty much inject your vines. I've used the old-fashioned method where I would take and start out with my seeds, and I'd put a Dixie cup around them to try to protect them against the vine borers. I've even used aluminum foil, and very honestly, it didn't work. It just didn't work. So, and I lost my entire spaghetti squash. I am going to try to plant again. The best thing I could do right now, is it completely preventable? I don't know. We'll find out. But they tend to have borer vine seasons. And in my research, my season is between May and June. So I figured if I go ahead and start now, I will see if this helps getting past that borer vine season, to see if I have a chance still yet to try to grow spaghetti squash without these insects. I will let you know later what the results were if I choose to do this, and we'll see how that works. I'm hoping that I had given you enough information to start you out. Don't be afraid to do this. It's really rewarding. Even in the bad times, it's still rewarding, because again, whatever little bit you can get, that's something you didn't have in the first place. That's something you don't have to turn around and buy, and you can preserve it either way you do it. Freeze it, can it, dehydrate it. It benefits you no matter what you do. Enjoy growing. There are many ways. There are raised beds, there are straight grounds, there are, like I've mentioned before, there are swimming pools, there are grow pots, there are 5-gallon buckets. There are so many ways to grow your own fruits and vegetables. The only thing is, you have to find out what works for you. I can give you advice. You can go online and find all the advice in the world, but you got to find what works for you, not what works for me. So experiment. Gardening is an experiment. You learn. I'm learning. I'm into my 3rd year of growing, and I've had much success in some of my crops and some not so much, but it's learning. I've seen so much advice, and some of the advice I've taken, they just didn't work, and maybe they will work for you. So again, just do what's good for you. If it doesn't work for you, just cast it off. It's no big deal. I take no offense into if you didn't take my advice whatsoever. Everybody has their own preference, everybody has their own style, and I get that. All I can do is try to help ease intimidations about growing, help ease into how big you have to grow or how small you have to grow. There is no rule in how you do anything. It's what you choose to do. If you're incapable of taking care of a big garden, go small. Use 5-gallon pots or even flower pots, whatever you use. It doesn't matter. Try it. Just a little bit. And if you tend to want more and grow more, that's amazing. The more you grow, the more you can put away for yourself. And if you choose that this isn't for you whatsoever, that's fine too. So all I can do is share with you, and I'm hoping that I helped you. And I look forward to making more videos with you. I will try to at least do one a day. There may be times that I may lack a few doing my canning or whatever. Some things in life will get in the way, but I'm going to try to produce more videos for you. If you like these videos, please hit the like button, share, and subscribe to our channel. And I will see you next time. Much love. God bless. From Parton's Heritage Homestead.